And let's check and see where we were. All right, so we discussed possible options for testing, get user by email. We discussed a lot. So existence of each property individually, creating an object that represents all of the properties and values and do a deep equals, or create a set of properties, a set of expected properties, and compare. So we decided on, and we coded option 1, where we tested the existence of each property individually. So let's look at here, and here's all of our tests. So for today, what I want to do is I want to, oh, right, we skipped a day because I was administering tests. Okay, so today I want to refactor the property tests to make more dry. And then we can start doing getUserData. Write tests and code for, oops. So that's my plan for today. All right, so let's go. Let's see, can I do this? Okay. All right, so this looks awfully repetitive, right? So what can we do to make it more dry? That would still be very repetitive. It also, there are different opinions for sure about this in the engineering community, but I like to have only one expect per test. And that way, if you fix that expect, you know that that test will pass. And also, when you see how many failing tests you have, like if you have a dozen expects in an individual test, you don't know how many things are failing because it'll stop when the first expects fails. But if you have separate tests for every expect, then, you know, so if like 8 of those 12 things were failing in your individual test, you would only get 1 failure, but you'd actually have 8 things to fix. Whereas if you have 1 expect in each test, you know that you have 8 things to fix. Yeah. So, you know, obviously follow whatever style your company follows when you get a job, but until then, you can decide whether you want to do the many expects per test or 1 expect per test. Okay, but even then it would be pretty repetitive. I'd have just a bunch of lines that look like this.
I don't quite know how to do this. I'm going to try. If that were like a regular function that was named something else other than it, I would just call the same function multiple times and pass in different.
Ah, okay. So we could make a function that just runs this it line and call the function multiple times. I want to do one better than that. I want to make and let's do this in a nice readable way. Image URL, primary city, and ID. It is not very JavaScript to make a const like this and then do a for each on the const. I like it because it's more readable, but like I think most JavaScript engineers would do, right? They would just make the array, because I'm never going to use that const again. They would just do this, right? So property and
well,
you do it like that,
yeah,
the array doesn't can't add to it.
which is okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good observation. But like, really, all I want to do is just like use this.
No, I was asking like you can't add to that.
Oh yeah, no. Well, you can't. This array doesn't. It like it gets used for this for each, and then is totally inaccessible. Like there's no variable to refer to it by. Yeah. Okay. So. And actually, now that I'm using the backticks, I don't have to escape these quotes anymore. So, okay, so now I get to remove all of this, which feels good. All right, let's try it. Yeah. Do I have just npm test? Sure. Okay, so it ran all of my tests. Okay. All right, so let's commit. I really should learn like the Monica way of committing, but clearly I'm a lazy committer. Refactor. Get user by email tests. Oh, I'm not recording. No, I am recording. Okay. Refactor get user by email tests to be less repetitive. Okay, and then here, I think also in the README, I'm going to say and you, as always, are free to make up your own mind. Okay. All right, so now let's write testing code for getUserData. So let's go back to whiteboard because it's been a while. So getUserData, we want to get the user data, including all of the user posts and all of the cities that the user has posted about. Okay. And we also just, including user data, right? That's the other thing. So let's we'll remember get user by email is just here's an email and it gets everything from the user where that email, and then it returns everything. So let's actually do this and get user data. Okay, so we are going to want to probably the same, we'll get an email, right? And this is going to be get user data for a given email or user table data. So, and then we'll return. What do you think we're going to return from this? We always return a promise from stuff like this. What's the promise going to resolve to? What keys? No. We're going to write the tests first, but in order to write the tests, we need to know like what we plan on doing with the. Okay, and we can actually look here and it'll tell us email. Well, we don't need to return the password, right? Okay. If this was the entire function, then there would be no reason to have both this and get user by email. What is the difference? Why are we doing this function also?
Are we also getting their names?
Yeah, so I also want okay, and okay, so the first thing we can do, so now we just say const, what were we calling this? Get user data. Doesn't matter where I put this thing, it's always just kind of a pain. Get user data, and it'll take an email. Oh. Okay. And so now let's return our promise. And let's get user, oh, we're gonna have to import get user by email. So and so get user by email dot then. Okay, and so user data. So here I'm going to say if not user data. What does that mean? It didn't return a user. Let's just return null. And I'll put in my, whoops, I'll put up here. Okay, so fine. Now, now what's my plan? Oh, I'm writing the function before I write the tests. Terrible, terrible. Okay, so let's actually just, I'll comment this out because it's good and we'll use it later. But let's just return new promise that resolves to, how do you do this? I looked this up the other day and apparently didn't remember. Does anybody remember how you make that, how you do that? Okay, so this is more than I want because I know you can just make a new promise. The resolution. Okay, yeah, so I can just do promise.resolve and that'll give me a promise that resolves to whatever. So let's just return new promise.resolve. And do I have to do a new there? No, just promise.resolve. Let's play with that a little bit just to make sure we understand it. So okay, so the p.then returned a promise, right, or it evaluated to a promise. And since I'm in the console, it'll always give me whatever what I just wrote evaluates to. But it did console log I am a promise. Okay, so I'm fairly confident that this will return a promise that just resolves to an empty object.
So are you putting a promise there for now just because the test is expecting a promise of some sort?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because I want to be able to run my tests and get a red on my tests, but not a red because like everything catastrophically failed, right? I want to be able to get a red because it's not returning the data that I expect.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go. Let's see. I think user actions. So let's do another function. All right, so for this one, we are going to want, I didn't do a get user by email. I did a user exists, did I do? Oh yeah, no, I did a user does not exist, which was just it was just outside that context. Okay, okay, so, and this is get user data. And I am also going to want to do a context user exists. So it's going to be similar. So reset the database and retrieve existing user, and this is going to be get user data now, and this will be user data. And up here we'll do a let user data. Okay. All right. So. All right, so what kind of tests am I going to want to do?
I think we're going to want to test that the first function returns that we're just getting like the user email.
But we don't really have access to the first function. And we've already tested the first function up here. And as a matter of fact, I do want to point out that all of these tests, even this one, they are integration tests and not unit tests. Why is that? They are exactly. So they're using database functions. So if I go here, this actually uses this DB1 or none. If I wanted to, so it is an integration test. It's testing how get user by email works with DB1 or none. If I wanted to make it a pure unit test, how would I do that? I would mock this function. Or I would actually, okay, here's an embarrassing confession. I don't really know the difference between stubbing and mocking, but I would do one of them for this function. I think actually I would stub it, but I'm not, okay, you can look that up. That's an exercise left for the user. Okay, yes, but if I'm actually using the actual function, it is an integration test and not a unit test. So let's go back here and so maybe at some point we'll stub or mock something, but today I want to move forward more. So okay, so back to, all right, back to here. So what do we want to test? The object that the promise resolves to has the keys that we're expecting. Okay. So we can do another. And now I actually, because I'm copying this whole thing and pasting it, I would like to make this, an actual function. So let's go into utilities. Let's remember what my thing looks like. And so in tests, do I have, wait, how come am I not in tests? Oh no, that's just recent files. So this is really not very useful, is it? But it looks like I do have utilities inside tests. And I have a DB reset. And now I'm going to make another new file. And I'm going to say test properties.js and do. So do I have to import anything here or require anything here? But other than that, so if I'm going to make this into a function, what would my input for the function be? You guys agree? Okay, if you didn't hear, you think about what the input would be. Do you understand? Is what I'm doing clear? Perhaps that's something. What's that? Not really. Okay.
You're like trying to extract this whole.
I'm trying to abstract a test that will create one test. I'm trying to abstract a function that will create one test per object that I expect to be in a property. Property what?
Property that you.
Yes. Did I say object that I expect to be in a property? Ooh, that'd be interesting. Okay. So what I really need is I need an array of properties and I need an object. Is this all good, Mira? Do you have questions? So, and why am I doing this? Why am I making a function out of this?
We're going to keep having to grab the user data from the database for all of tests.
Yeah, I think there are going to be a lot of tests for which I'm going to want to test to see whether an object contains a particular set of properties. What are the advantages of abstracting it out?
Just, not repeating yourself.
Dry. What's another advantage? If I decide, remember we had a bunch of different ways that we could test the properties, or actually it was only 2 ways that we could test the properties, but if I decide later that I want to change and I want to test the properties via sets, instead of doing it one at a time via this expect for property, then I can do it in just one place, right? Abstraction, the wave of the future.
I agree.
Okay. So now I can say properties dot, and because I already had abstracted this out before. Like, this is mostly what I need. I just need to change one thing here. What do I need to change? Yeah, what do I need to change it to? Result object. Actually, I want to keep this because I'm going to use this to make an array. I don't know whether I completely erased this from the other one or not. I did. So here, what I'm going to have to do in this file. Require the function from the other file. So in utilities, let's see, I'm already doing utilities, db reset. So I can just do this and I can say, let's see, test properties. Okay, what else? Why is this all red and squiggly, by the way? No, that would be why ESLint would make it squiggly. This is my TypeScript checking, my type checking. Well, we can keep that in mind. I did not export it from here. Right, so basically code is smart enough with this type checking that I do to know that what was exported from this, it's not an object. it's nothing, right? So okay. And I called it check properties here, and here I called it test properties. Let's, just because I called the file test properties, let's call it test properties here also. Okay. So let's go back to, okay. So now we have test properties, fine. And then, and now what? Now that I have it, how am I going to actually invoke it down here? Now, I actually don't need to return. Why do I not need to return? Actually, in test properties, we didn't say what it returns, bad us. What does this return? Does it return a promise? Should I be saying returns here? Or return? We're so used to being in promised land, but this is not a promise. This is just like straight synchronous code. There are no promises here. We took care of all of the promises in this before. And this, this is not, this is just plain synchronous code, just runs, no promise. No need to return here. And this returns what? What is this function going to return? There is no explicit return. It's going to return undefined. What's your problem here? Okay. That's my type scripting that I'm going to, at this point, not worry about. I think I could make it happy by doing this. Nope. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that right now.
So is that how Mocha essentially works? Like if it returns undefined, it's like, okay, tests pass, and if there is an error, then it catches it.
Yeah, so Mocha, the return part is actually, in this case, totally irrelevant to Mocha. Mocha, I think I understand what you're saying, though. If the function returns before any errors have been thrown, it doesn't matter what it returns. But if it returns before any errors have been thrown, then your tests pass. Which is why we need to make sure that we delay functions that involve promises from returning until the promise has been resolved or rejected. Okay. All right, so test properties. So we have all of this. So let's go back. So now we can do test properties. We do not need to return it, which is what that whole thing was about, because it is not asynchronous. There's no promises. It'll just run these lines. Just the same way when I did array.forEach, I didn't have to return that either. Okay. So test properties. What is my first argument going to be, or my first parameter? Okay. And then the second one. Yeah, I think I actually, oh, it is. I thought I copied and pasted other stuff, but lucky us. Okay. Great. Let's see if that works. No. Okay, where are we going to go? User actions, line 72. Oh, and if it's line 72, what does that mean?
Something else is missing.
Yeah, like my braces aren't properly closed, and we'll just go back to the part here. So, so if we do this, that looks okay. The before looks okay. The test properties looks okay. So what am I missing? Is it down here? Yeah, it is down here. Okay, so that's the context. And then that's the describe. And then we don't need this. In fact, I don't think we need that. No, we do. Test properties 14, missing parentheses after argument list. Missing parentheses after argument list. Oh, this argument list, the for each argument list. JavaScript, you're such a pain in the ass. Okay, what's my declaration, or what's that? Yes, thank you. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Target cannot be null or undefined. So somehow I think I'm not getting what I need inside the test. Target cannot be null or undefined. So I wonder if the first thing that makes me think of is that this user row is somehow undefined. But let's go into test properties, and I just want to see. Oh, right. So I have my command KL for the result object and KL for the properties. So, okay. Let's try again. There's going to be a big mess because it's going to do all of that 6 times. It's not going to do all that 6 times. It's only going to do that once. What the fuck? Okay. Well, so I think that, okay. So, oh, that's really weird that it only did that once. Like it only ran this once. Did I? So let's look here. This is real. I love this kind of bug. Okay. So test properties is requiring the test properties. The fact that it only ran it once and it didn't run it down here makes me think that when I exported it, did I, so like if I had done this, like that would sort of explain the behavior, but that's not what happened. And it ran once, like it really ran once right at the very beginning. Like it really seemed like it ran when it required this file. So what's going on here? Did I not define my function properly? Well, okay, so there are 2 reasons why I'm assuming it ran when I required the file. One is, notice it ran before it started running any tests at all. And I require the file before I run any tests at all. The other reason is I expected to see it 6 times because it ran that. It would if it had run that. Oh no, you're right. You're right because it only runs it once. Yeah, no, that's a good point. So if we get, why is it doing get user by email 6 times? Well, that's a good question. Okay. Am I really, oh no, I think get user by email. It should do maybe user exists. Some shit ain't right here. So let's go back and, okay. So I have a before, and then I'm running this test properties. And really, why is it running this get user by email? Why is it? Because if we look up here, when we had this stuff working before, this is what we want it to look like. We don't want it to look any different than this, right? We want it to see get user by email, and then the user exists, and then, you know, if they fail, they fail. But so why is it? It's really interesting. So if I, instead of this, I'm now going to just do, let's see, actually, let's go back here, and I'm going to comment this out. And now I'm just going to say array
is it in that before each? Get user. Oh, it's just before, so it just runs once.
Yeah. A good thought. I just want to say, I'm interested if I just do a simple for each, whether I'm going to get one of these or whether I'm going to get like the weird all, you know, like get user by, oh, no, I take it back. This stuff is fine. It was just the failure that was giving me the problem. Okay, so I'm I'm going back and I'm going to say Celeste did a good job of convincing me that we should only see this once. It is weird to me, though, that I'm seeing it at the beginning and not like sort of in here somewhere. So let's, I just forget about this. I don't think I need this anymore. Okay, so why, so is it running this test properties? Is it running it in this context? And test properties, if we look at it, like, so it seems to be running it. So it seems to not like the fact that I have the it buried in here. Like that's sort of my guess as to what's happening. Because the it is buried in here, it doesn't see this as something that it has to wait for the before each for. And so it doesn't define the user row before it runs this. As a matter of fact, it runs this just like on the first pass of the file. Well, that's a bummer because I liked it, but I liked that abstraction. I actually liked it a lot. So let's do an it tests the properties and this. And I think this is going to solve it because I think this is going to convince Mocha that it needs to do the before each before it runs this code. Does that make sense? Let's see what happens. It didn't show that stuff, and now everything works. You guys have any questions about any of that? That's kind of a lot. Yeah, and I'll do it in 1 minute. Okay. Cool. Well, that's the end. At 10:15, Justin is going to do a workshop on getting a job. Probably a good thing to go to.
Just a quick question. I saw the note. Why they said that? Why you said you like expected to be on?
Oh, I said that that I like to have one expect per test, and it's because if you have a dozen expects in one test and 8 of them fail, you're only going to get one error because when the first one fails, whereas if you have them all in different tests and 8 of them fail, you're going to get 8 errors. More accurate assessment of where your code is at. Okay, meet with squads.